Hey guys, welcome to 6 Minutes for Tuesday, November 8th. I'm Jason Fulmore, SE Wrestle, and today we are talking top 10 preseason in Alabama. About a week ago, Jaxon Bast of Alabama Wrestling Forums and I sat down and broke down his top 10, which looks to be fantastic. It's going to be a really, really good season. Because we talked for so long, I do not want to take up much time here. Only thing I would say is season kicks off later this week in Georgia and Alabama. A bunch of tournaments coming up this Saturday, and everybody else is kind of gearing up across the Southeast. So hopefully we'll be providing a bunch of information here in the coming days. Anyway, enjoy my conversation with Alabama Wrestling Forum's Jaxon Bast.
Jaxon Bast, Alabama Wrestling Forums, Jaxon Bast, and Bluefield Heavyweight, Jaxon Bast, and ranked in the conference, Jaxon Bast. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we are talking 7A top 10. And I want you just to explain right off the bat why 7A is your favorite.
Because I don't know, it's kind of like I really think that you've got the most dominant programs in the country. And it's kind of, honestly, I would say that Thompson, Vestavia are kind of like Iowa and Penn State.
Yeah.
Like I think it's honestly a super, super dominant thing. And I like that. But I also like that it takes a lot of hard work for you to try to take down one of those guys.
No, I agree with you. And we saw last year. I mean, shout out back to Hewitt's program from last year. I don't know that you can put together a much better program than Hewitt had a year ago, and they still finished third. Two really good teams that have a ton of depth, a ton of talent in the room, not just their top kids, but the kids that are all the way through. And then the rest of 7A, and honestly, you're really starting to see some real development, like of other programs on their way up in 7A, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're seeing a lot more, and the word perfectly would be depth. I mean, that's what makes these programs so good. You're going to have 50 kids in that room, but it's because, those kids are, they're all 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're all like you. I remember, I think it's happened multiple times, but the most recent one was 132 my junior year. And that was supposed to be Manny Oliver's weight. Or no, it was 138. It's supposed to be Manny Oliver's weight. Manny Oliver gets hurt, the week before sectionals, and they pop in a young freshman who hadn't seen anything. I don't know if you may have heard of him. His name's Will Garrett. They put in Will Garrett as a freshman, and he ended up taking out returning state placer Alex Mason to qualify for the state tournament.
Yeah. So that's a perfect example, because that's the kind of depth that you're talking about. You're talking about the quality of the competition in the room is why you see kids leave those rooms and go and wrestle in college. And that's what 7A does for you. One of the things I think 7A does more than maybe some of the other classifications within Alabama is there's not a ton of programs, but those programs are all super competitive. All right, man. So we've got a top 10 in 7A, and you don't do a dual or a traditional, but as we talked about in some of the other ones that hopefully somebody will go watch, the 5A or the 6A or the 1A, 4A or whatever the case is, you have a tendency to focus a little bit more on returning points, which means it's a little more traditional heavy.
Yeah, it's definitely more postseason tournament heavy, because I think that's personally to me, that's the biggest and most important way that you can kind of grasp what's going on.
All right. So let's go to the bottom 5 of the top 10. We'll start with number 10 with Bob Jones. Number 9, Enterprise. 8, Oak Mountain. 7, Smith Station. And 6, your alma mater, Spain Park. All right. So tell me a little bit about the bottom five, these bottom five teams. How close are they? Was there a team that was close to breaking in? Kind of what's the general feeling of these bottom five?
I mean, it's kind of always been the same for me. Like kind of with 7A, like I said, it's pretty much you've got your top teams, and then there is a pretty big gap. But all of those teams are competing, and the one thing that although there's less, there are more kids on those teams because they're the biggest high schools in the state.
Right.
But I would say that 9, 10, and then probably 11 through 15 are kind of interchangeable. I would say that my number 9, Enterprise, is probably, I would say that they're interchangeable, but I would say that number 9, Enterprise, is probably the most likely to kind of move upwards. They only lost one kid, and state finalist Zachary McFarland, but they still returned Cody Kirk, and dang, I just looked at his name and it escapes me.
Yeah,
Greer Hunt.
Yeah,
at the weight above, and those are some young guys.
Yeah, I think Enterprise actually has quite a few, and like we talked about in some of the other conversations, if you get some wrestlers from the other weight classes to step in and kind of make a difference, and that right now to me is the difference between the top 5 teams in 7A and the other teams in 7A, and that is you've got some absolute individual studs on, Spain Park has Bradley Williams, and you go down Smith Station last year had the 2 up top with Watson and Flagg, and you've got your hammers. The issue is that you can't afford to give away, 18 points from 32, 38, and 45, or whatever the case is. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
And that's what doesn't happen with the top teams in 7A. And the bottom top 10, or the bottom 5 of the top 10, that's where you need those individuals who aren't your hammers, aren't your studs, to come up and wrestle huge to get you to move up. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't know. It all kind of goes back to the depth of these teams. At 182 last year, Nathan Black, who was a sophomore, I think he placed 3rd in the section, ends up placing 4th, has a close 6-2 match with Will Conlon. And it really, I think last year at 182, it was Lamy and then Pippin Conlon and then everybody else. So for him to come in and have a really close match against Conlon of Spain Park, that just kind of shows to you what you're talking about. Like, you need your other guys to step up, and really that's what wins it. If you've got
those points for you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, if you got someone at those upper weights, I would say your 1 or your 2 might be pretty set between those 2 schools, but having that, you can win a state tournament on the backside.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree completely. So, is there for those of us who maybe don't follow this closely or whatever, is there an individual in any of those bottom 5 of the top 10 that we should pay attention to? One individual or 2 individuals that from Spain Park, Smith Station, or Mountain Enterprise, or Bob Jones?
I would probably say it might sound biased, but I think you might see a very much a Spain Park team that almost relates to what they were in 21. You've got a really big senior class that comes up, and you've also got a Bradley Williams, who's returning 2-time state finalist for the Jaguars. And then there are a couple other people. I think Smith Station lost a good amount. You have a couple, but I would say outside of Spain Park, I would say the team to watch is definitely Enterprise with Greer Hunt and Cody Kirk.
All right, so let's jump to number 5, and I already made mention of them from last year's team. And let's be honest, Hewitt comes in at number 5, a fantastic program. Coach Pike's doing a great job. They do lose a lot. There's a lot of, they still return Hunter Jones. I believe they've also returned Chris Hawkins. They have other studs in the lineup as well. But, you do lose Lucas and Logan Reeves. You do lose, Zimmerman. You do lose a few hammers. So Hewitt is your number 5 team. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that although they placed third, you said it perfectly. You lose Andrew Shelton, who at one point in the season was ranked number 2.
Right.
You lose Zimmerman, who's a state placer. Both the Reeves brothers. That's a state champ. That's a state finalist. That's a state placer. You lose all those guys. You're not going to be able to maintain unless you reload. So you might see the reload. We might finally get to see a lot more depth from Hewitt, because in the past Hewitt has had 5 or 6 like absolute studs on the team. Not necessarily a ton of depth, but they've got 5 or 6 like my freshman year of high school. They had Braden Treglown, Braden Key, Stone
Right.
Barton, Connor
Right.
Smith, all of those guys. So, you might end up seeing some depth, or you're going to see kind of a new wave of the studs that we keep talking about.
All right. So we now jump to number 4, and the Coach Laney Hoover Bucks come in at number 4. I mean, let's be honest. If we look at the history of Alabama, Coach Rohr back in the day, and the Hoover teams from the early 2000s, obviously we've had a little bit of regression. Now we're seeing this kind of resurgence at Hoover, a team that's on the rise, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they're on the rise. I think you ended up not seeing the guys who you thought were going to. Like, I just think Hoover had a bad tournament, honestly, at the state tournament. Even Brock Metcalf, who I thought we was going to see a John Michael Turris, Grissom Hoover matchup, falls to Cody Kirk in the semis, comes back, places third.
Right.
So they ended up taking, I'm trying to count, 3, 6, 9. They took 11 out of 14 weights, and they only had 2 placers. And only one of all of them graduated. So
yeah, that's tough. I mean, it's certainly and let's not bury the lead here. We have Thompson and Hoover now moving to the north. Oh, you didn't know that?
no, I did not know that.
Yes, they're now in the north. They're now in that north sectional.
Oh gosh, that's wow.
Yes. So we now have wide and north to battle through. Winter is coming, definitely, to the north. It's going to be quite a battle up top, because now we're jumping to number 3, and again, so last year was the Hewitt team. This year, to me, it's Huntsville. Huntsville is stacked. They've got studs up and down their lineup coming in at number 3. I don't know if they can break through to take 1 or 2, but they are tough.
No, they've got a young squad that I think can come back. They only lost 1 kid, in AJ Kelly up to 220, but as we talked about it just about every single time, it's the fact that you come the first time so that you can be better the next time. They had 5 placers and 9 qualifiers, and they only lose 1 of those. Now obviously the names that you would know would be the Simons, the Cicalella. Max Morrow was a big name, didn't place at a super deep 132-pound weight.
I think Morrow might have graduated.
Well, I'm looking at this. This could be wrong.
No, I know. I think I actually got something from Coach Harris that said that track wrestling was wrong and that he was a senior. But you're right. I mean, besides Max Morrow, and one of the things that I want to actually make mention of as far as Huntsville goes is you had the Simons down low. You actually eliminated a Wallace Blue who couldn't even bring in the lineup who is one of the best 106 pounders in the state.
And that's honestly, that's crazy to me. And as we're sitting here, we're thinking about rankings. Do they bump everybody up?
Right.
Do they do something like that?
Right, because the
Or do you
little
just have-
Simon wrestled at 106 at the Georgia Super 32 early entry tournament. So it's not as if he can't make 106. Now that was a 109, but I mean, the end of the year it's 108. You have the best shot at winning the state title at that weight. You know, yeah. I mean, you got those pieces about how to put those pieces together, and they're really tough down below. They're like Huntsville's super tough. Do you think they have can they break into the top two?
I think everybody always tries to prey on the downfall of Vestavia Hills High School, but I don't think it'll ever happen. I'll be honest. I remember.
I love that. That's a perfect statement.
I don't know what Coach Adams does. I don't know if he grows kids on the side of the campus. No, he doesn't. He builds champions. That's all it is. That's why I think your 1 and your 2 are here. Now, I definitely think that there's a gap between 1 and 2.
With Thompson being 1 and Vestavia being 2.
Yeah.
Just based upon returners.
Yeah, and it's, well, honestly, like, I'm trying to think, since Coach Adams has been the coach there, and even before then, you had the legendary, as they call it, the Bear Bryant of Alabama wrestling coaching,
right?
Steve Gatosh. Like, Welton has competed with some of the best names in the state, and Coach Adams is definitely. I would say that he's a little more competitive than Coach Gatosh was, although he's only won, let's see, 2 titles since the last 6 years. 2 went to him, 4 went to Thompson. So it's really just kind of a here or there kind of thing.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you brought up actually the stadium, because it is one of those things and Thompson, but every year I think that you think that the stadium is not going to be. This is the year they slip down, right? Based upon the number of returners or who's returning or whatever. And yet they're pushing Thompson yet again for that top spot. And let's be fair, Thompson, I mean, Johnny Vines, Tona, and they're losing several. Like, they're going to need some other individuals to step up and step in to take that title. But again, we talk about it again. Thompson the City just seem to kind of come back almost stronger as a result of like what's in front of them. I fully expect Hewitt to make that jump and break into the top 2 last year. I look at Huntsville and I'm thinking they're going to jump in, and yet it is something about Thompson and Vestavia that just seems to be, I don't know, kind of crazy that they're able to continue to do what they do. So anyway, yeah. So how, like I've asked you this with the other ones, are we going to see Thompson and Vestavia again? Or how confident are you going to see Thompson and Vestavia right in the dead heat again?
All right, I definitely think that Thompson's going to win it, and Vestavia will get second. And then, honestly, I'm pretty confident that Huntsville will get third. Now, could Hewitt go above Hoover? Could Spain Park maybe finally? I don't know.
There, right?
Well, the highest Spain Park's ever placed was third, so it wouldn't even they wouldn't be breaking their record. But so I mean, I don't know. I'll be interested to see where it all lies.
All right. So top 7 or top 10 again in 7A: Thompson, Vestavia Hills, Huntsville, Hoover, Hewitt, Spain Park, Smith Station, Oak Mountain, Enterprise, and Bob Jones. But just so you know, and I know you're busy and you got a lot going on, but I believe that both Thompson and Vestavia are at the knockout this year in Central Florida. So if you get a chance right before Christmas, come on down to Florida. I'll treat you, and we'll go watch. We'll go watch them compete.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look in my schedule, but I'd definitely be down.
All right, Jaxon, I appreciate you taking time, man. And maybe after knockout, we'll have a conversation, talk a little bit about where 7A stands.